Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We now come to that moment in the afternoon or early evening which many guests would consider a highlight. Ladies and gentlemen, to reply on behalf of the bridesmaids, pray silence for the best of best men, Mr. Stephen Heaps and Graham McGee.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. I maybe have to start by saying you're dreading this moment. I've been dreading this moment all day. Now, I think maybe before I start and spend the next 10 minutes defaming you in front of your friends, your family, and your new extended family, I'll maybe say a nice bit and thank you both for such an amazing day. It really has been just perfect. Thank you. I have to say though, it's going to get even better when I can enjoy my first drink of the day. Fraser seems to have spent about the last 3 months telling me how good the red wine was. At the same time, he was also telling me that he didn't want to see me touch a drop until after this moment. I can't wait. Now, you've no doubt seen that Fraser has two best men. I'll quickly introduce us. I'm Stephen, a friend of Fraser's since 1985. And the days of Jack and Jill Nursery in St Leonard's, East Kilbride. I could at least go home at night. Graham, Fraser's brother here, didn't have that option. Now, you may think that Fraser's decided to have two best men because he likes us both equally. I know Fraser far better than that. Fraser's got two best men to mitigate any potential risk of only having one. He's a complete and utter control freak. And would never leave anything to chance. In this situation, Fraser would quite literally be thinking, I'll have Graham as my best man. What happens if Graham gets ill? What happens if Graham drops dead? Forget about that. I'll rope in Stephen as well. You should all think yourself lucky as well that you didn't receive a copy of the wedding schedule on Thursday night, running to about 500 lines of an Excel spreadsheet. I almost broke into a cold sweat. This control freakery is just one of Fraser's many character weaknesses. Let me list a few that hopefully you can all relate to. His OCD. I don't know how many times you can check your car doors unlocked, especially when it's a 20-year-old blue Fiesta. His shameless love of a selfie. I hope you can all see Exhibit A, which I have asked to be shared around the tables. But this is an example of the vast number of selfies that you can find on Fraser's Facebook site. I'll let you take a moment to enjoy them.
Get out of it.
So this black and white one is what Sarah said. I'm this one.
Can I film over your shoulder?
Moving on the list. The next weakness.
Okay, thank you.
The next weakness is his unbelievably geeky knowledge of the UK road networks and their service stations. This, despite being an absolutely atrocious driver. Next, his love of art and photography. Highly unusual for a boy from East Kilbride. Next, his detailed alternative eye for fashion. There aren't many mates, now Fraser's touched on this, there aren't many mates you get a phone call from on a Saturday night to say, do you think it's okay to wear my new kilt jacket and waistcoat with a pair of jeans? Now, you can imagine my response, and he obviously didn't listen. I don't know if anyone saw the picture of him last Saturday night, looking like something from an episode of Foyle's War. Another one of his weaknesses, and it's actually maybe not a weakness of Fraser's, it's a weakness of my family, and it's my family's love for him. It really annoys me. And last but not least, his toilet habits.
Ooh.
Now, a little bird told me that Fraser's mother-in-law refers to Fraser as a Disney prince. And when I first heard this, I thought, Fraser, a Disney prince? Now, he's always been the slightly better looking one, I have to admit. But there's nothing else prince-like about the Fraser that I know. So I thought I had to try and research this a wee bit more. So I had a look on Google to look at what the characteristics of a prince were, and this is true. 1, never leave anything to chance. Tick, two best men. 2, organise with military precision. Take a look around you. Remember this. 3, moral and ethical behaviour are subject to change. Couldn't possibly comment. 4. Perception of the prince is more important than the actuality. Tick. 5. Wait for it. Appearance matters. Tick, 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 tick. 6. Deception is acceptable even where necessary. Surely not, Fraser. Mrs. Bemble, I think you've got them absolutely spot on. Now, hopefully this starts to paint a picture of the Fraser that I know. But the auditor in me knew that I had to seek out some real evidence of this and really just try and verify that those characteristics that Mrs. Bemble so quickly picked out were in fact true. As luck would have it, when I was in Birmingham recently, I stumbled across Fraser's diaries. And I thought now I'd maybe just, for the next 5 minutes, share a few extracts from them.
Oh, this is getting awkward.
Got a few props here, and I've not figured this out logistically. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
I can't see a thing. Volume 1, 1981 to 1990, titled The Making of a Disney Prince. Met a little tubby ginger guy called Stephen Heaps today at nursery. Weird second name and nowhere near as good looking as me. I'll try and like him, but he'll have to improve his sense of style. Annie'll have to stop calling me Freezer. I'm not a kitchen appliance, I'm a Disney prince. Had a slightly embarrassing moment today. A little girl called Aileen, who lives in my street, saw my little man. She laughed loudly. It was so embarrassing. I tried to tell her that I'm a grower, not a shower. But she was running away so quickly, I don't think she understood. I really hope she forgets about this quickly and that I don't ever have to see her again. And finally, I've decided that when I grow up, I want to start a camera club. So, some interesting insights, even at a very young age, into the way that Fraser's mind works. A keen eye for fashion, exhibitionism, and an incline for one day starting a camera club. I'll perhaps just take a moment to check if Aileen Wood, who's actually here today, has managed to forget about that dreadful exposure incident. I know how you feel, Aileen. I had the misfortune in the stag do recently of a similar exposure incident. And I can confirm he's still using the same line 30 years on. I'm a grower, not a shower. This is a bit dodgy, this line. I can also point out that he's the only man I know that's got a stock library of pictures of his appendage on his phone. That's just plain weird. Back to the diaries. Moving on to a few extracts from Volume 2, 1990 to 2003. He's called this Shits and Giggles. I've now sat my driving test 5 times and still can't pass. Those examiners just don't know a good driver when they see one. Going to a party tonight at Ian Campbell's house. That should take my mind off things. His dogs terrify me, but I'll be fine after about a few drinks. Arrived at Ian's party last night, fashionably late. Everyone was waving at me from the kitchen window. Ian's dog then ran out and bit me in the crotch. Blood everywhere. I had to quickly go for a tetanus. That dog's ruined my night, my reputation, and my new Levi's. I'm in luck. My friend Stephen's got a new car and is going to start driving to university. He's charging everyone £1 for a lift. Quite an entrepreneur. He's even charging his mum. This is pretty good value though, given that the bus costs £3 and takes twice as long. The thing is, I don't think he'll notice if I skip paying. I'll just get out of the car early, say that I've no change, or say that I'll pay tomorrow. That way I'll get free transport to university every day. He'll never notice. Cha-ching. I did notice. Been travelling a bit this year, New York and Stockholm. The problem is, I just can't seem to leave my toilet troubles at home. I went to the toilet in Starbucks on arriving in New York. It turns out it was the only toilet in the store. By the time I'd finished 20 minutes later, there was an angry queue of Americans waiting. I had to quickly leave the scene. I completely Donald Trumped the toilet. Almost caused a diplomatic incident in the cafe outside the United Nations today. After another 20-minute stint, I blocked their toilet as well. It overflowed and was in danger of running into the cafe. I had to run out quickly, shouting "Go, go, go" to my friend Stephen. He wasn't impressed, he'd just started his bagel. Stephen finally got his own back on me in Stockholm. Again, I was just settling into another toilet session. This time on one of those high-tech little numbers you find on the high street. Stephen thought it'd be funny to try the open button. It wasn't funny. The bloody thing opened. And there was me sitting in the middle of the street, pants round my ankles, surrounded by some of the hottest women in the world. All I could shout was, "I've not finished yet." Driving test finally passed. The girls are literally clambering all over me in my blue Fiesta. Drove the Fiesta into my dad's garage wall tonight. He wasn't impressed. Ended the year on a high note. Pulled Stephen's cousin tonight. For a few minutes I thought I was going to manage to pull his Aunt Ethel. That woman loves me, but she's nearly 70, so I went for his cousin instead. The venue could have been slightly more romantic. We were standing against his granny's fence. I think she really likes me though. Fraser was actually the last woman that Fraser was actually the last man that my cousin kissed. She's now happily married to another woman with 2 children. I didn't actually write this, but I met my cousin last weekend and she asked if she was going to feature. She'll be happy. And then the toilet thing. To this day, it's clearly still an issue. I got a phone call from Fraser a few months ago when he was house hunting to say that the toilet in the house he had viewed had an amazing flush. Apparently he had to test the facilities. And in what may be a slight breach of patient confidentiality, he turned up at one of his many stag do's recently and announced to me, this is quite painful, they had gauze between his bum cheeks to stem some bleeding. Now, I won't go any further than that, other than to say that he's completely fine and it was toilet related. And finally, Fraser, it hasn't escaped me this evening that we're in some fairly plush surroundings. And you should probably all thank me. This is no doubt financed through the proceeds of crime. 3 years worth of you successfully evading university transport costs. Factoring in interest and penalties, I make it owe me about 5 grand. Okay, on to the diaries again. He's called this 2003 to 2013, the rise of a Birmingham icon. I've decided to move from one grey city with a motorway running through it to another, Birmingham. I do love a motorway, mind you, especially the M6. Favourite service station? T-Bay, of course. Bad start in the grad community. Was giving my little man a wash at the sink, didn't have time for a shower. And my new housemate, John, walked in. I tried to tell him, I'm a grower, not a shower. Almost killed a brummie today. Stupid guy on a motorbike just didn't anticipate how quickly an advanced driver like myself could take a right turn. He was overtaking me at the time. First thing I knew, he was flying through the air, dressed like Superman in leather. Bad start to the morning, but clearly his fault. I've decided I'm going to finally realise a dream and join a camera club. I've spent a lot of time recently taking some pretty good selfies of myself. It's time for the next step. Gers, Birmingham, here I come. Sunday lunch at the Fighting Cocks today, took a few selfies. 2013 to 2015, he's titled this, The Disney Prince Meets His Disney Princess. I've joined Gers Birmingham. Essentially it's a camera club, but Gers Birmingham sounds cooler. I've also taken up running. To be honest, I've no interest in either exercise or photography, but I've read online that art and sport are traits of Prince Charming that make girls swoon. I'll see how it goes. I've done it. I've met my Disney princess, my Snow White, my Cinderella, my Anna from Frozen. Her name is Sarah. She's perfect. Camera club and running has clearly worked. I've quickly risen to the top and become the MD of iGers Birmingham. That's the title I'm giving myself anyway. Cue a life of free meals, media appearances, red carpets. All this for taking a couple of smoky photographs. Sarah, I think perhaps the greatest compliment that I can give you is that you've almost succeeded in normalising Fraser. You see, I noticed as soon as Fraser and Sarah started going out, he seemed to get that bit nicer. He started visiting Glasgow a lot more often. He seemed to drop the tight black jeans, tight t-shirt and swept back hair look, often complemented with a leather jacket. And at one point, he even started running. It's a truly amazing effort. You've definitely pulled off the Disney Prince role today. You look amazing. I say you've always normalised, Fraser. I never thought that a mate from East Kilbride would end up involved in some strange virtual world where followers, links, comments, impressions, hits, unique visits, or some sort of status symbol. I just don't get it. The way I see it, being famous on Instagram, it's like being famous at playing Monopoly. Ooh, sore one for the people in here. Nearly finished. On to the final extracts from the diary. 2016, the royal wedding. Now the diary entries seem to get a bit frantic this year. It's almost like he doesn't have time. Wedding venue booked, the Balmoral in Edinburgh. Glasgow or Birmingham just don't cut it for a man of my style. Trip to Edinburgh this weekend. Need to examine the cutlery to be used on the big day. Trip to Glasgow this weekend. Need to get fitted for my kilt. Trip to Edinburgh this weekend. Need to check the curtains in the venue don't clash with my kilt. Trip to Glasgow this weekend, need another fitting for my jacket. Trip to Edinburgh this weekend, forgot to take a selfie in front of the Balmoral. Called Stephen to check the stag do has been well managed. Called Graham to check the stag do has been well managed. Called Stephen to check the stag do has been well managed. Stag do in Spain, they all saw my little man again. They just don't understand, I'm a grower, not a shower. Glasgow stag do, Birmingham stag do. Now by my calculations, you've visited Scotland more times in the last 6 months than you have in the last 10 years. And I suspect we probably won't be seeing you now for another 10 years. I've probably given you a bit of a hard time over the last 10 minutes. I hope not too hard. I'll briefly end by trying to redeem myself. It's actually been great being able to spend some more time with you both over the last 6 months, particularly getting to know you that bit better, Sarah. You really are a fantastic person, and Fraser, you really are a very lucky man. I think today you've both put on an absolutely amazing day, and if the strength of today is any reflection of what's to come, you're in for a truly amazing time together. And Fraser, I think you touched on this as well, although we don't spend that much time together anymore, I think the great thing about it is when I do see you, it almost feels like I just saw you yesterday. The same rubbish chat. But I genuinely see that as a sign of a great friendship and hopefully one that will still be there in 30 years' time. Now, before I get too soppy, I'll pass the baton over to Graham now and see if I can find a glass of that red wine you were banging on about. Thank you.